you just have to educate them. If you want crackling, it's got to be left on the pig, and you're going to have that beautiful fat under it. So deal with it. I mean, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of meat, and the fat is amazing. Its flavour, so it just renders throughout the meat.
This is The Crackling. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Inspiration often comes from life experiences, a moment in time that changes the way you think and the way you want to live your life. For Damon Porter of Saison Smallgoods, that moment happened in the south of France, where great charcuterie inspired him to take his career in a new direction. Damon, how are you?
Yeah, good. How are you going? Thanks very much for the opportunity.
It's great to have you on the show. You had a bit of a shift in career inspired by some experiences. Take us back to France and the experiences that you had that sort of made you change track.
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't 100% France. I mean, it was always my favourite way of eating, and I always loved those small goods. Like the idea of just having all the bread, all the pickles, all the meats and stuff laid out. It's just sharing and everything like that. It's just my favourite way. So it seemed like ever since I sort of got involved with it, after being a chef, that's where my career started heading towards. So of course I wanted to go to the south of France and learn that side of it over there. So like not just dry cured stuff, but some of the cooks, pâtés and terrines and all that stuff as well. I just love it.
Take us back to your experiences over there. Do you have any that you can tell us about that sort of were really important in in inspiring you?
Yeah, I mean, in Australia, like a lot of the cuts, the thing that opened my eyes the most was when I got there. A lot of the cuts in Australia come in a 5H bag, and you don't see any side of the butchery. But in the restaurants over there, I mean, it's all whole animal. So you're using saws, you're using all this stuff, and you actually. I worked in a small place to start with, and I worked with this chef that was from Corsica, which done all the salamis, and it was literally hung in the cupboard. Like it's totally random, but so fun. And so you're getting whole hog in, and I just remember seeing where every single part of the animal went. Like it just has a home. So like the blood goes to the black pudding, like the back legs will hang a prosciutto, or we'll do a noix de jambon. Or the bellies will get cured down, or they'll rolled. And just seeing everything having a home and just knowing where it all goes was just phenomenal. It was just an eye-opener. And we ended up doing the same thing, of course, why not, when we got back with the Caro. Just treating the whole animal differently. Yeah. I think that was the biggest eye-opener.
Tell us about what it was like when you got back. Was it difficult to get it and challenging to get it up and running and dive into the world of charcuterie?
No, I wouldn't say it was difficult. I mean, doing it in a restaurant is a big batch in the restaurant was 10 kilo. The more difficult thing was starting to take it to the next level in wholesale and doing batches of like 200 plus. That's where it gets difficult, and you've got to take different approaches to things. And it's been a massive learning curve over the last year. And you're sort of going in it. I'm not going into it like a butcher or a salami maker. I'm going in looking at it like a chef and just saying, what do I want out of this product? And what can I do differently to improve this? Rather than, I'm still taking those traditional techniques that you've learned, like still doing it really slow, still using that nice slow curing bacteria, like no heat treating. But then just trying to introduce different things that just take on different notes, like using specified cuts in your salami rather than just it being trim. Introducing a couple of native stuff like the native pepperberry and anise myrtle, incredible. We do a wild venison salami, which I get off my mate Alan. So they all come in whole, all get broken down, sometimes hides on and everything. And I've got halfway through the tanning process, but haven't been able to finish it. But that's another story. But yeah, and so we do a wild venison salami with all the gin botanicals that I do in my gin at home. Don't tell anyone. And the strawberry gum, and it's incredible. Like, the flavour comes out amazingly. So it's just fun having to play with a few little things like that rather than just like I said, using the traditional techniques, but just having a bit of fun with it.
In those early days when you first started in the restaurant making different sorts of small goods, what was a moment where you really felt that you'd sort of nailed it?
The restaurant that I was running was super open kitchen, like literally. If they were dining for lunch, we had this massive big copper pass, and so the pigs would get walked through the restaurant, slap straight on the pass, and I mean, one side you're plating up dishes, the other side you're boning out a pig. And so, like, it was the way it was received was actually phenomenal. Like, there's people coming up and asking questions, and I guess, like, when you're sending out 90% of the customers that came in would have the charcuterie, like, that was their specialty, of course. And just the amount of customers that came up and just said, wow, that was incredible. I mean, how did you do that? And where did this start? Why? I was like, oh, I just love it. And yeah, but don't get me wrong, like I felt like we've tried every single different combination with those. So there's been a lot of failures as well. But I mean, those 4 years of running the restaurant, I mean, I've taken the best stuff that we've done, and then that's what I'm presenting to the restaurants around Brisbane.
Take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play in your family?
We weren't a foodie family. I mean, I always loved food, but because we didn't go out to fine dining restaurants, I just didn't know that world. But I mean, it still didn't mean you couldn't enjoy it. Like you can still make a chicken sandwich fucking amazing, and you understand the evolution of that. But we weren't a foodie family. But and then as soon as I started doing my apprenticeship and then got involved with it, I remember eating Wagyu steak for the first time, and it just destroyed me. Like, you can't go to a barbecue ever again because you've had this nice called Wagyu, and then you go to a family barbecue and you're like, what is this? I mean, I've had the best stuff around and I want that again. It's just that constant search for perfection and flavour.
Tell us about the early years in commercial kitchens. What were the real sort of important moments for you as you were climbing the ladder?
Important moments. The place that I learnt the most was I did most of my apprenticeship under David Rayner, and it seems a lot of apprentices moved around, but I didn't need to because I started with him at Barado, so it was, of course, quite fine dining, amazing projects. Like, his seafood was just incredible. Like, I remember the guys just knocking on the back door with, like, big loins of, like, big-eyed tuna. And I guess at the time you appreciate it, but you appreciate it a lot more 10 years down the track and you're just knowing how good you had it. And then from there, David bought his own place, the River House. It was a small place in Noosaville. And daily changing menu. So you'd come in, the veg supplier would just do a market run and go to his local growers, bring it in, you'd write your menu, you print it that night, and you'd start again the next day. And it was never, ever a withdrawal. I mean, you were going home, you were studying, you were just seeing how you could evolve dishes or just learning how to use all this different produce. That was massive for me. I mean, the repertoire just went from, like, the standard, like, apprentice will do the same dish, sometimes a year straight without changing the menu. But I mean, having this repertoire of all these different stuff to work with, and we were so lucky having an amazing team there. Like, we had Lana Sapwell there. We had all these good names that came out of there, and we're all still really good friends with. Yeah, and again, like, looking back, and at the time, you didn't really appreciate. You just fucking loved food, worked hard, partied hard. And now looking back, what we actually got out of it career-wise is just phenomenal.
What was it like for you stepping into your first head chef role and taking ownership of the food program of a restaurant?
Yeah, I guess I was pretty like everyone. I thought I was fucking incredible when I was very young and just went out there and just done it. And then you learn from your mistakes and you look back and you see some of the stupid things you've done, but I don't regret it at all. I mean, I've dad done a lot of places in Noosa and I worked under some good guys and I really wanted to put my own food out there. And I was encouraged to by a lot of the senior chefs, which sort of pushed me into it. But I was running a small French bistro to start off with. And, yeah, I mean, in the end, it went from not much to absolutely heaving in the end. And then I got this opportunity to go to Noosa. Someone offered me a position. So I really did want to be back in Noosa, so I took it. And then it was Coconut Grove. And it was a small place in Sunshine Beach. And again, we just started pushing, like, everything made from scratch, not fine dining, but just doing the right thing and just, having fun with your other staff, like bouncing ideas off people and just pushing the boundaries. So, yeah, it was great. But of course, after running that place, I knew that I needed more training. And it was after that I went over to France and, just getting thrown in the deep end. Like I went first to a big brasserie in Monaco, classic brasserie. So copper pots hanging all around the kitchen, like shining as. The big head chef, like a lot of the chefs actually look like pirates. It scared the shit out of me. And especially when, you're not that fluent in French yet, it was difficult. Um, only the head chef had dockets. So, I mean, everything's verbal. So I was constantly sort of trying to peer over his dockets. He'd say, "Don't look at my fucking dockets." But, I mean, it was great. I mean, you instantly have to learn French. So it was perfect. And some of those old school techniques, like just simple things like the bouillabaisse and, just all that Mediterranean stuff, the saladier, the fogasse, just everything made in house, gnocchi. I love that region actually because of the way that it's heavily influenced by Italy. You get both worlds. And especially in Monaco because you got a lot of Italian chefs that come over the border because they can work for good money. So, I mean, it was a great experience, yeah. But after that brasserie, I moved over. There was this one chef which I really liked, and Laurent Serbo is his name, and there was a new place that was getting developed. It was actually designed by Philip Stark, so incredible amounts of money. I think it was something like €8 million they did for this refit. Yeah, so it's 3 levels. So downstairs was kind of like a bar slash nightclub, I suppose. Middle had this massive deck, just like right on the Mediterranean, right on the Cape of Cap d'Aille, and then the rooftop sort of sunbathing area, I suppose it was, but it was like proper valet service and everything. And so just starting that place, like it was brand new as I was going in there. So like doing each step along the way with all those chefs was incredible, and moving up the sections because as an Aussie, as a young Aussie, when you go to France, you can't fucking cook. Doesn't matter. You're not French. You can't fucking cook. And then, so of course you're always on larder, and that's fine. I mean, that's where you start. But then they just start to realize, and then when they watch you, and they're like, "Oh shit, okay, this guy's changing sections." And then you work your way up from there, and then just get a rapport with the head chef, and it was really fun. Yeah, learned a lot.
Pork is at the heart of a lot of what you do these days, but your experiences in kitchens in France, did you learn to cook pork differently over there to what you'd been used to in Australia?
Yeah, I did. I don't know if it was the time. I don't know if it was just the time that everything was evolving at the same time, but I mean, it was where I was sort of more introduced to a lot of the brining and dry aging and stuff. So like the last place I worked, we were lucky to have a fish fridge, meat fridge, and veg fridge. And so we really could just hang everything and take that different step. So I hadn't really done that a lot, but yeah, we worked a lot with pork, a lot with lamb, and just doing a lot of that butchery was just the biggest eye opener. Yeah, not as much in the south of the pork. It was more. I did do a stint up I did Montpellier and then I did Grenoble. And Grenoble, I sort of learnt a bit more classic techniques doing the pâtés and stuff like that. But it was really fun.
Your experiences now with pork, do you approach cooking pork differently now you've had the great insight to the world of charcuterie?
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot more precise. I mean, basically everything we do, whether we're drying or cooking, it gets weighed exactly, and then the exact measure of salt, the exact measure of sugar if we're using it, or so I mean, yeah, whether it's a dry brine or a wet brine for osmosis, it's massive. Like the maths involved in it is huge. I mean, I've never done so much maths in my life. It's insane, like percentages and stuff like that. And I was terrible at maths. So I had to learn all that stuff. But I mean, like cooking a porchetta, it sounds so simple, but 1.8% salt, all your herbs rolled up properly in the bag, like it takes a lot longer than you think. It's not a day job. It takes a lot longer for that salt to penetrate than what you think. And then you're conditioning your skin. So you're conditioning the skin for a good 2-3 weeks, which also gets moisture loss, which is, ups the flavour a little bit. And then, so 3 weeks later you got a porchetta. But it's not like the old days where you just salt your pork and roast it. There's way more involved in it. It's definitely a different approach, yeah.
You mentioned how important understanding the different cuts are of the pig. Do you remember the first time that you butchered a whole pig? And can you tell us about that experience?
I've done a lot of suckers, as you do, because not many restaurants that I worked in did the whole pigs. I guess it was, after, I don't think I did it after my apprenticeship in Australia until I went to France, and then I just loved the different utensils using, like proper using a saw, proper using the charcuteries, like all these just tiny little techniques, like to get the ribs off. I'm like, they're for gardening. And he's just like, yeah, but they're fucking amazing for cutting the ribs, and just see how neat you got it. I was like, wow, so simple, but just incredible. Those tiny little things, that just make a world of difference. And I still do the same techniques now. I love it. But it's good being able to, like, you can really manipulate. Well, not manipulate. I mean, you know what you want when you've broken down the whole animal, like, and you're not just getting the different cuts in the bag. So you can have a bit of fun with it. I mean, yeah, you can roll the whole belly into the sirloin and do a massive porchetta like that, or you can do a spit roast pig by boning the whole thing out and still keeping all the skin on the outside and conditioning it. There's just so much stuff you can do. It's just so versatile too. And like, I love the way, like, whenever I dry age it, I like salt it so it's properly internally seasoned, and then age it on the salt. And I love that because it, the salt is obviously a preservative. It just, I just love that you can age it on the salt because it just intensifies the flavour. Whereas sometimes beef can get pretty funky sometimes when it's dry aged. And I love the moisture loss, but I mean, I'm more into it with the pork, to be honest, rather than doing it with the beef. I just love being able to incorporate that salt and how it changes the structure of the meat, and just retains so much more moisture.
How important is the quality of the pork in what you do?
Oh, massive, yeah, massive. I mean, we had a good play around with a few different breeds of pigs. Like, I think Tamworth cross Duroc was incredible for salumi. I think the best, I mean, by far the best pigs we got was from Vaughan Shields. I mean, his stuff is incredible. Like, I remember just flicking him through the photos all the time, and he's just like, oh my God. Like, just these massive fat caps on him. And it takes a bit to educate the people because, I mean, maybe just Brisbane, but Brisbane people do get freaked out by the big bit of fat. But yeah, you just have to educate them. Just say, look, it's there for a reason. I mean, if you want crackling, it's got to be left on the pig, and you're going to have that beautiful fat under it. So deal with it. I mean, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of meat, and the fat is amazing. It's flavour, so it just renders throughout the meat. Oh, we had a Josper there too at the last place. The Josper was so fun. Oh man, so we're dry aging like all these pigs. So basically, the hindquarters, like the forequarter and the hindquarter, go to our salumi. But not necessarily that, but then mostly like all the primary cuts, we'd roast them up. So the Friday and Saturday night, we'd always do a whole muscle. So like it's salted, aged, and then wood fired in the Josper. And we pushed that thing so hard. Like, it was just constantly working, just always full of meat. It was incredible. So like sometimes we'd break the back legs down, brine them, and then you'd load up the Josper just with ironbark and the coals, of course. You'd close off all the oxygen. So if there's no oxygen, there's no fire, but it's still got that residual heat from the coals. And so it just bellows smoke like the whole night. And you come in the morning and you just carve a bit off of the leg, and it's just fucking incredible. Like, it's just so gelatinous. Oh man, that was so fun. I actually missed that now. I was talking about it. Oh, it was unbelievable. And then, yeah, like whole collars as well. And yeah, it was another level. But like, we'd have 40 or 50 portions of pork on the pass. We only had 80 seats, and with a couple of turnovers, we'd do 100. And we'd be sold out by like 7:30, and people are just like, "Where's the pork?" I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. We had this big, a mate I worked with, he lived in the granite belt, so he collected this big bit of like flat granite. So we had that sitting on the copper pass underneath these heat lamps, and we called that the meat podium. So there was always like just this big. If you looked on my Instagram, you'll see it. Like just go back a year, and you see these big like slowly wood smoked pieces of pork with just crackling going everywhere, and yeah, just carving it up just directly right in front of the customer, carving up a nice sauce and garnish and send it. It was, yeah, it's fucking awesome.
These days, you're making some pretty amazing small goods. Can you tell us the breadth and depth of what you're creating there?
When I first started the company, I had this idea that I was going to run it exactly like Picaro and get the whole pigs in, and I still want to do that, but I just realised that I can't start. I can't start there because like it's all me doing it. So I have to start doing a couple of cuts first, and then it's taken a long time just to really nail those recipes for the big quantities. And again, there's been some failures, but that's the way it is. But developing those products was such a journey. And now I'm getting to the stage where I really can start to get the whole pigs back in and then start to give every muscle home, like I like to say. And that's what I'm looking forward to. But I guess the first year is playing around with different flavors and getting those recipes nailed. And then the next step is so like the last couple of weeks I've been working with Vaughan again, getting a couple of whole mussels off him and whole pigs. So I'm trying to work out a way that can work well for both of us. So obviously I'm just doing the salumi now, so I don't use that many primal cuts. So I'm happy for him to send the primal cuts to the restaurants, which will benefit more, and then I'll just take all the second cuts. So that's where we're working. It's to try and still do whole hog stuff, but just working more like a community, I suppose. I mean, when I first started here, Ben Williamson was we were taking the whole pigs, and then he was rolling them up for porchetta for Agnes, and I was taking the rest. And then it just got a bit too much. Like I sort of had to tone it back a little bit, focus on what I need to do business-wise, and then push forward again. So that's what I'm doing now. Vaughan's great. Like he's crazy, but it's been so nice getting his product through again.
What's a product that you've made recently that you really enjoy making and also happy with the final product that you've created?
Oh, we actually cracked into the first ham. So with Vaughan's first pig that we got here, we did a whole prosciutto, of course, just because we had to. We got no space. We couldn't do like prosciutto as a product line, but we had to do a prosciutto because it's just what you have to do. So I guess it was probably 18 months old, and it was a couple of weeks ago. We had a little wine dinner in the actual production kitchen. So we pushed all the tables aside, put lid up on the walls, and sort of covered it up, and it had some lights down, and then I had the big slicer out in the middle. I was shaving up this pork for the first time, this prosciutto. Fuck, it was incredible, hey, like that nuttiness. Like, I know we're not supposed to, but we had it just hanging out. So it goes through stages. So the prosciutto the leg has to get salted for X amount of time. So once that salt fully penetrates, then it gets aged in the drying room, which sits about sort of 10 to 12 degrees at 75 to 80% humidity. And then so after it's gone through that stage, it'll get about 30% moisture loss, but roughly, I mean, because when you've got bone in it, it's not 100% accurate, but you get it to around that stage, and then the next stage is the summary. So you literally put a sunya on the outside, the fat, the pork lard and rice flour, and just coat the whole leg, and then just sit it there, just hanging in the cupboard, and it just smells incredible. You get this yellow fat on it, and like every time you walk past, you just waft in. It's like, wow. And so, yeah, we finally, like, after that stage, you clean it up. So you clean up all the fat, you sort of trim it up, and then slice it up. And just sharing that was awesome. Like, going through 18 months of like nursing this leg, it's a whole other thing. Hey, it's crazy. It was actually the second time I got that feeling, because the first time I did 2 prosciuttos, and again, the restaurant was running. We had no space. So it was stupid to do because they're sitting there for so long. But I did 2 prosciuttos, and then came home, and my partner was being a bit weird. I was like, what's going on? She's like, I'm pregnant. I was like, yeah! And as I always joked that when we were having a baby, because like the minimum for a hum-on is kind of 9 months. So I always joked I'd do a hum-on, and then when we'd have the baby, we'd eat hum-on and then, look after the baby. So I thought I was having twins because I did 2 legs, but it turns out we didn't. But but yeah, it was incredible. We're eating this ham that was like older than my daughter. It was a spin out. It was so cool though.
On a global scale, how well do you think we do with charcuterie in Australia these days?
It's a funny question. I've obviously spent the last 5 years eating my own stuff because I love it. I need to actually venture out and try some other people's stuff. Of course, I've done a bit of the De Palma stuff is fucking amazing. Like, their stuff is incredible, and they're like proper traditional Italian family. So I love their techniques, and if you're after a traditional product, you definitely wouldn't go past them. And I just love that they're pushing the boundaries with what we can do in Australia. And I don't know if it was them specifically that it changed it, but I love that now that you can do nitrate-free products. You don't have to follow their rules so much as long as you prove that it's safe. So we do a lot of micro-testing, of course, because you have to. And I love that it's kind of hard that it's put it back on you, but it means you can push the boundaries a bit more and do some super delicious stuff, not having to follow these rules that they give you that just it makes a shit product because they want you to put so much salt in it, so much shit in it, just because it's really safe. But I mean, they've been doing it for so long in Italy and they don't have these problems. I mean, if you just do it properly, if you get to it nice and slow, proper amount of salt, proper weight loss, I mean, a really good pig with salt is the best fucking thing in the world. I mean, you taste some of the Spanish hams and you just know, I mean, like the right feeding involved in it and just the right pig. And it's literally just salt and thyme, and that's it. And it's phenomenal. So it's kind of, I really wish we had those same pigs to play with here, like in Australia. I think like that would take us to the next level being able to do that. But I understand why, and I still think some of our pigs are amazing. And yeah, we are doing some excellent charcuterie, but it's hard to go up against that sort of Spanish pig. Like we even got to cook some of the primary cuts in Monaco off those Iberian pigs, and holy shit, they're just incredible. Hey. Yeah, it's a whole other thing. Like, we done a couple of Tamworth Cross Duroc into Salumi at Vaquero, and having the fine bone structure with the really fatty pork, they say it's pretty close. And like some of the capricola and stuff that I did off it was, it was like nutty and rich and delicious, and it was very close, but not exactly the same thing. But yeah, we can get close, and we do. Yeah, we do excellent products at pork here, I think.
You've had the most extraordinary sort of career shift, but what is it that you love about what you're doing?
I love just that style of eating. I love just layering out the whole spread of all the different cuts and then just going to town with mates, some sourdough, olive oil. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a couple of beers. I love that side of it. The salami's interesting too. I'm a small guy. It's funny, like actually getting into production where I'm constantly like carrying around 60 kilo tubs of like broken down pork. Yeah, it's insane. Hey, I guess I knew that was coming, but I guess I didn't expect it. But yeah, it's pretty funny. It's a massive workout. Hey.
Well, Damien, it's been an absolute pleasure to hear a bit of your story today on the Crackling. Good luck with everything that you're doing. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon. Yeah, we'll do. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. This is The Crackling, a Deep in the Weeds production in partnership with PorkStar. I'm Anthony Huckstep, Stay tuned as we catch up with some of Australia's best chefs and pork producers to discover what makes Australian pork so special.